You and Your Young Child, a program of information and services available for you and your child from prenatal to age 5. You and Your Young Child has been brought to you in part by the Sternberg Museum of Natural History.
Stop! Where are we going?
The Sternberg!
Don't get left behind. We're waiting for you here at the Sternberg Museum, where there's always new opportunities for
Discovery under the dome.
Hello, and welcome to You and Your Young Child, the program devoted to early childhood. My name is Dana Stanton, and I'm the coordinator of Early Childhood Grants for USD 489. And with me today is Terry Wilson. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, Dana.
Now, Terry, tell us what organization you work for and what do you do there?
I work for Early Childhood Connections.
Me too. Keep going.
And we work with children and families, and the age group for the children are prenatal through age 5. And we're with the school district, USD 489, and we just have a lot of different aspects to our program. And you can go on our website or on your website
NiceParents.com.
and get more information. And we're taking enrollments, so make sure if you have a child that's prenatal through age 5, to
Lots of
call.
stuff we could do. Now, today we're going to talk about, I love general topics, creativity. So
Yes.
creativity. So now I know this about you, but tell everybody, why is creativity so important and why is it important to you?
It's important to me because I think that's a strong sense that we give children if they're able to be creative, that they have problem solving and risk taking and something for their independence. I think there's just a lot of things in there. And today what I'd like to talk about is not just the arts in general, but about art and media, more so than, now creativity is in dramatic play, it's in block building, it's in all those things. Every aspect of our life, you know, whatever we do, sand play, but we'll be talking about arts and
Some benefits. I mean, what benefits does art have?
okay, it helps nurture the brain and get those brain connections going. It has make you a better communicator and to connect with other people and to really have something that is your own. And so when we talk about it being your own, we're talking about doing a process and not worrying about the product. And one of the terms that I like is ditto ducky. So we don't want ditto duckies.
Yeah, you don't want everybody to look the same.
Right.
Everybody's art shouldn't look the same. Yeah.
And so if we have something like that going on, that is an adult directed or teacher directed. It's not art. And so when we have art, you know, it's just the process of going. An example would be if you have black circle and black pine or pipe cleaners.
Pipe cleaners,
Can't think
yeah.
what they were called.
Yeah.
Anyway, and all the kids make a spider.
And you tell them exactly how. That's not art.
No, it's not art.
Yeah.
But what might be art is if you study spiders and talk about them and show them to your children, and you can do all this at home. And then just give them the materials and see what they come up with. And they may come up with something completely different. I have a friend that's my age, so she's older, and she remembers being in kindergarten, and she drew a picture, and the teacher came by and said, "Oh, I like your turtle." And she said it wasn't a turtle, but the teacher wrote turtle on her paper, and then when she took it home that night, her mom said, "Oh, you made a turtle." She said it still didn't turn into a turtle.
Yeah.
And her mom put it on the refrigerator forever.
Yeah.
And she said that piece of paper never turned into a turtle. And so she doesn't even remember what it was, but she remembers that people mislabeled it. And so that stifled her creativity in that way. Another way to think about creativity is if you just close your eyes for a minute and think about the mountains. Okay, now open your eyes and tell us what you saw, what you smelled, what it was like.
Well, I was thinking of Rocky Mountain National Park. I was thinking about those big jagged peaks and at the top where the snow is. And I was thinking about how the breeze is always cool and the smell of the trees and everything. So what came to my mind.
Okay, and someone else might have a different one. I might be in Hawaii and looking at the volcanoes with all the lava and the, you know. And my grandson, he's been to both those places, but he would probably say Nana's Mountains in Nebraska, because up in the Sandhills there's some high hills, and those have always been Nana's Mountains. And so we look at things different. We see things differently. Another little hint is, let's say you're the child and you came to me and you wanted me to draw a dog. Okay. Instead of drawing the dog, I might say, okay, let's think about a dog. And what do you see when you think about a dog? What are you seeing in your head? And what would you say?
I would say, you know, furry and a tail.
Okay, so furry and a tail, and so you jump right on that and you say, oh, where on your paper could you put a tail? And what would it look like?
Yeah.
You're not drawing it, they're drawing it. Because if you draw a dog, they're going to copy. And that's not art, that's copying.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you'll say, oh, what's next? And oftentimes they'll go from a tail
To the tongue or the nose, or not in logical order. Yeah.
No, but then they'll think, oh, it needs a space. And so they're learning about spatial, what we call, you know, so they identify different spaces on them.
Now you brought some things. Show us what you have.
Okay, this book is called The Dot. And it's a new book. It is by Reynolds, Peter H. Reynolds. And what I like about this book is the little girl, and I'll just paraphrase it a little bit. But
Okay, I'll hold it for you.
oh, okay.
There you go.
Okay. And the little girl, she can't draw, and so the teacher comes by and said, "Oh, you made a
Dot.
polar bear
Yeah.
in the snow." And the little girl said, "Oh no," and she laughed. And a teacher in this, but it could be any adult, and said, well, just make a mark and we'll go on. Well, she just went like this and made the mark made a dot. And the teacher said, okay, sign your name, and left it at that. Well, then the next day she came and there was a picture framed. It was her picture framed by the teacher's desk, and it was the dot. And she says, well, I can do better than that. And so she started making more dots and really developing it until she had a whole art show with dots. And then a little boy came to her and said, well, you're such a good artist. And she said, well, you can be too. He says, well, I can't even draw a straight line with a ruler. And she said, well, you can. Let's see what you have. And so he made a squiggly line. And she said, oh, now sign it. And so she passed that on. And sometimes it just takes a little bit to get going. And I personally, I don't recommend coloring books or coloring pages. You know, when children are developmentally ready, they will color in the lines. And they need to do that maybe in 4th grade when they're making maps.
Yes, map making is a whole different thing than being creative.
Yes, it is.
Now, I know these are wonderful strategies to have. If parents, you know, I would assume it would take nothing more than throwing out a bunch of colors and some glue and some tape and things like that. So that's the way parents could, you know, start this process at home.
Yes, and one good idea is to take, you know, oftentimes as parents we don't have big sheets of white paper, big sheets of paper, it doesn't have to be white, but is to use a roll of freezer paper, and so you could just pull off however much you want.
Parchment paper would work.
And parchment paper would work. Brown paper bags from like the store works. Boxes work. You can use styrofoam pieces, and that's you know, not the little pieces, but well, you can use those for other things. But to use the big pieces and stick pipe cleaners in them, or different kinds of markers will work on them, and some won't, and crayons do, and you know. And the other thing, I wanted to say about crayons was to not worry if they get broken. You know, oftentimes
they will, yeah.
I just break them and tear off the paper and And that is the best creativity there is. It's because then they aren't fearful
Of ruining
Right.
their things, yes.
And I had somebody tell me yesterday, well, they didn't even color because they didn't want to ruin their
Their
crayons.
colors, yeah. Well, that's stifling creativity. These are wonderful things you've let us hear about today,
Okay.
Terry. Now, if a parent, we talked about Connection Services. If a parent wants to know more about Connections, what number do they call?
They call 785-623-2430.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us today,
Okay,
Terry.
thank you.
You've been watching You and Your Young Child, the program devoted to early childhood. Parents, remember, you are your child's first and best teacher. Thank you.
You and Your Young Child, a program of information and services available for you and your child from prenatal to age 5. You and Your Young Child has been brought to you in part by the Sternberg Museum of Natural History.